Shadow Warrior is a first-person shooter with the ability to use swords in addition to the usual firearms. The game uses version 9 of DirectX. As such, it is devoid of any kind of tessellation. However, the main character details appear smooth and rounded. The same cannot be said about the other 3D objects in the game. Many of them appear polygonal, showing the age of the graphics that depend on DirectX 9. Texture resolution is solid. Some objects have relatively low-res textures, but there are not many. Lighting in the game is top-notch, whether at night or daylight, sporting modern effects like lens flare, God rays, etc. Dynamic lighting is also there. Muzzle flashes and explosions cast the correct lighting on the environment. Shadows appear soft and smooth. Dynamic shadowing is also present. Flashlights cast the correct shadow on the environment. But sadly, the effect is somewhat restricted. Not all objects have dynamic shadows. In addition to that, muzzle flashes and explosions lack any form of shadow casting. The physics engine of the game is good. Most objects can be vandalized or even destroyed. Enemies can be split in halves and cut into small pieces. However, it is a little disappointing that the sword cannot do the same for inanimate objects, with the exception of a handful of large objects like chairs or vases. Explosions, fire, and smoke effects are good enough. Particle effects appear satisfactory, and all surfaces react to the blade and projectiles of the player. Water is very good. The player can interact with it, generating waves through his motion on its surface. Even enemies do the same. Water also sports dynamic reflection for the whole environment, which is extremely cool. Even blood splashes on the ground share the same feature. Regrettably, although the game has many polished and glossy surfaces, metallic glossy or otherwise, none of them actually have dynamic reflections, only static ones. Post-processing effects are limited to the standard depth of field and minor motion blur. The game uses two types of anti-alliasing, FXAA and full-screen supersampling. The game recommends the use of FXAA, and we tend to agree with that recommendation. Our testing revealed supersampling to be extremely taxing. Performance of the game at the Ultra preset is good. However, Shadow Warrior does not utilize CPU resources well. It uses 3 cores at max. Utilization of GPU resources is also somewhat lacking. Some scenes appear very unoptimized and drop GPU utilization to 60 and even 40%. However, these are random cases. The majority of the game achieves 95% GPU utilization. However, we still advise the developer to add more optimizations, especially at the CPU front. The game suffers a little from random loading times, which last for about 2 seconds. Apparently, the game doesn't load all of its assets at the beginning of the level. It even barely uses more than 1 GB of video RAM. Not a smart memory exploitation, obviously. All in all, Shadow Warrior is a game with fantastic visuals and is a joy to watch and play, owing to its gorgeous lighting, solid texture resolution, and the use of dynamic shadowing, lighting, and reflection. However, the game uses an old version of DirectX, limits its dynamic effects in a bizarre way, perhaps to save performance, and lacks some optimizations here and there. As such, we cannot elevate this game to the state of the mighty looking games. The game just lands very close.